It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. We are live on this Sunday morning, June 22nd, 2025. Special live coverage and comments on the situation in Iran. Gary, good morning.
Good morning. Just the latest before we get, in case people are just, catching up, getting home from being out on a Saturday night. We'll get to the president's statement, which was a short statement, by the way, but It wasn't like a 15 or 20-minute statement. It was, right. I think, just a little over 3 minutes, but we'll get to that in just a moment. But latest breaking news, Israeli emergency responders are heading to 10 scenes following reports of impacts from the latest wave of Iranian missiles this morning. Now, this is probably about 25 minutes old when CNN broke this story. Following the alarms that were heard in the last few minutes, teams went out to search the scenes where reports were received, said the emergency agency in a statement. A CNN producer in Jerusalem reported hearing explosions over the city, and a video showed several projectiles in the skies above. Israel's military earlier said its defensive systems were operating after issuing a warning of a new wave of missiles, the first since the U.S. confirmed that it had bombed Iran. Warning sirens also went off in Jordan, which lies between Israel and Iran. And just so the CNN also reporting that there were actually 12 of the bunker buster missiles that hit the Fordo plant, and 2 bunker busters were used at Natanz.
That's interesting.
Along with the 30 cruise missiles that apparently hit Natanz or whatever.
Right.
I would suggest that one thing, you've got all over social media, it's like the Iran reports that there's been no damage at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't believe any type of damage assessment. We probably won't know what it is. That probably will remain classified, but that damage assessment won't be done probably for another 24 to 48 hours from the U.S. government and
in fact,
other intelligence agencies.
Yeah, I mean, we hear, even from this side, we hear obliterated, and we hope that's the case. I mean, if you're going to do the job, it should be done thoroughly. But in terms of the extensive damage done to any of these plants and locales, one of the things that Iran has done in the past, you talk about going back to Iraq and Baghdad Bob. Well, Iran actually in the past has done deepfake videos, and they were the worst deepfake videos. They didn't fake anybody. They actually have it was the worst photoshopping video editing ever in propaganda in recent years, and it would be right along the lines of Iranian leadership to, do that. Hey, this didn't hurt us. They actually missed. They didn't get anything. Iran did issue a statement earlier, basically warns the U.S. strikes will have everlasting consequences as Trump says nuclear sites obliterated. As you said, Gary, it's going to take some time. There's going to be assessment by global intel. The Mossad has been, in fact, there was conversation over the weekend. I know we're only halfway through the weekend, but we got a short weekend. But it's the conversation basically centering around Mossad and how deeply embedded they were in Iran and what they were able to accomplish, find out, manipulate, who they were able to manipulate. And that story will be told, I think, down the road. Hopefully,
when the movie comes out.
When the movie comes out, right? Starring Ben Affleck, and so the question will be again. All right, what was the ultimate effect? And when you talk about the Fordo plant, of course, was all the conversations. It was the target. But when you look at all of the other targets, it was important that you went in and I think did the job. If the U.S. was going to be involved, right, in a strike, it makes sense that you don't limited. The cruise missile thing, if you think about this is the largest buildup in that region since 2003. And they're still there, and President Trump warning, hey, if you don't want to play nice, we can continue this very easily. We'll have his exact words coming up. I'm paraphrasing there, but sending that message essentially to Iran. The question now is what to do with Iranian leadership. The president is saying, we want peace, and if you're not willing to talk. But the president also said just 2 days ago, I guess now going on 3 days ago, that it could be up to 2 weeks before I even make my decision on what we're going to do with Iran. And so the point is that you want that kind of disinformation, that unpredictable nature that I think this particular president already has built into him. But if you're sending messages, and yet you and I, during the pre-show meeting, were actually talking about what was going on during the day on Saturday and how they were sending messages about and disinformation in order to throw the enemy off. The problem with today's world, part of the problem is that in building out a strategy for a mission like this, there is a great deal of risk of that mission going south very quickly. The crew on those B-2 bombers were the only ones in Iran, to be clear, but they were in danger. And so you don't want that. When you think about when we went into Pakistan.
That we know of.
Yes, exactly. You
not being conspiratorial, just
right.
Understanding how war works.
No, you're absolutely right. That we're aware of, that we're being told.
Yeah.
So but it's true. I mean, I'm laughing because everything you're saying is true. And you and I've been doing this long enough. And so then you look at, like when we went into the mission to go in, SEAL Team 6 to go in after Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. Well, there were things that were going on. First of all, a couple of helicopters that had not been tested in the field. There was really, they were not flying by the seat of their pants, but almost. And then the mission getting out of Pakistan without the Pakistanis catching up with you and all this. Part of what happened as they came into that compound on that fateful night was that people were on social media going, wow, I hear helicopters. And that, of course, could alert the Pakistanis. Of course, I'm sure they also heard it because one of their military schools, in fact, their top military school, was just a few hundred feet away from Osama bin Laden's compound. And so, but in today's world, the point is there are so many things that could spoil a mission. And so many observers and people watching. And, when you got people online tracking Elon Musk's jet, and doing things like this and have so much access to information, it can be dangerous for those that are a part of this mission. And you certainly want to send out as many flares as you can and draw the enemy away if possible. So that was the tactic on Saturday. And then later on Saturday, I was actually just having a conversation with my lovely bride on the road. We took a short road trip, and on the way home, I was talking about how this is all going to play out. And I said, I really suspect it's not going to be 2 weeks. I actually said it the other night. I didn't say it that way on the air the other night. I just asked the question: what sitting president gives a timeline, right, about such a huge, massive act of war? Imagine back in the day, well, I'm going to decide after Pearl Harbor, I'll decide over the next couple of weeks. Now, they may take a couple of weeks, but I mean saying the timeline, putting the timeline out there. To me, especially after coming home early from the G7, and I thought, something doesn't seem right. Either something has drastically changed and he needs more time, or he wants to give the Israelis time to do it on their own, or whatever is playing out, or it's disinformation, and now we know.
Well, I heard even an ABC reporter last night say, well, the president said he wasn't going to strike for 2 weeks. He didn't say that.
He said he was going to make he actually said the words that he posted were within 2 weeks.
Right. And you and I had warned when we were on Thursday night, Friday morning, we said, look, none of this, because, we asked the question saying, okay, what is there to negotiate? And that was interesting because one of the audio cuts that went viral, we'll play it coming up here in a little bit, was an expert saying, yeah, when he said, within 14 days, he goes, there's nothing to negotiate, which is exactly what we said the other day.
Right, exactly.
There's nothing to negotiate. And so if you wait that long, you wonder whether your enemies are watching and saying, okay, Trump isn't as strong as we thought he was going to be.
Right.
But this is, and we said it the other day, this will be the one thing of everything else, even the border. This is the one thing that will define the Trump presidency.
Yep.
But we'll get to that coming up here in just a little bit. We'll wait. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, we'll play, because it's already a couple of hours old, but we want to play it anyway. The president's comments, Netanyahu's comments. One thing, just so everybody understands, Trump is not going to be impeached for this.
That is not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. And the other thing is, and we'll get into a little bit more details on this a little bit later on. Representative Massey came out and says it's unconstitutional. It's not unconstitutional what the president did. There is no precedent to make it. You may want to say it's unconstitutional if you believe the Constitution says something else.
Yeah.
And the other thing is with the, some of the Democrats, screaming the War Powers Act. The War Powers Act basically is legally nothing to the executive branch.
Right.
And we'll get into more of the specifics of it later on the show, but I think it's important because you see that immediately come out going, he's got the War Powers Act. We need to come up with, we need to vote on the War Powers Act.
No.
Congress cannot change the authority of the president when it comes to being commander-in-chief.
Right.
So when the War Powers Act came out, I believe it was in 1978, listing all these things that the president, has to do.
Right.
You have had administrations follow it and say, okay, we'll follow that. We'll do that.
Right.
Every administration has made it clear to Congress, we are not legally bound to this.
Right.
And you say, why not? Because Congress itself cannot change the executive branch authority over the military.
Right.
And when the president senses there is a danger to the United States, and the president believes there's a danger to the United States, he is actually required to act.
Yes.
That's one of his responsibilities. That's why he alone is the commander-in-chief. Now, he can be held accountable down at, down the road for it. Like if he said, well, I'm going to take out the Dutch.
Yeah.
Because we don't like the Dutch.
There's only two kinds of people I can't stand.
That's what I was hoping.
People who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch.
That's what I was hoping. That's the only reason I mentioned the Dutch. I said, what country can I pick on? I said, I'll
Michael Caine.
I'll get him to do the Michael Caine impersonation.
Austin Powers.
But the only process that you could go through to change the president's power, the executive branch's power as commander-in-chief, is to have a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, right.
And so all this stuff that you hear being thrown out is strictly political. It's not constitutional. The president stands on totally solid grounds. And, you saw everybody on social media going, but there's been 47 times since Truman where the United...
Yeah,
but we know that.
Yeah.
But there's a reason for that.
Right.
Now, they mentioned the War Powers Act, but the War Powers Act of 78, Congress itself, by passing a law, cannot tell the executive branch what to do. Only a change in the Constitution can.
Right.
When it comes to being commander-in-chief. So just wanted to clarify that because I know people are probably going, oh, now they're talking impeachment and that. No, nothing's going to happen on this at all.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. By the way, I'm looking at CNBC.com and the oil prices, and there's a sub-headline here. Someone needs to update or delete. Oil prices fall about 2% as Trump holds off on Iran strike, hopes for negotiations.
It's still there because when I checked like 2 hours ago.
I mean,
when I checked
refresh the main page again and then go back and go to oil and click on oil as one of the tabs. See where oil prices are.
Well, my point was,
it's still there.
I checked 2 hours ago and I figured it would be gone by now.
Right.
When you just said that, I'm like, that's not gone.
Right.
They're still using
it. Would be valid. You're right. Up to a few hours ago.
Right.
It would have been.
Well, I was saying a couple of hours ago, they haven't changed that headline yet.
Yeah.
It's
by,
still there.
By 6 p.m. or so, 7 p.m., it should have been gone.
It is Saturday. It was a Saturday night.
Yeah, that's true, by the way. And Gary and I both, it turns out, Gary and I were.
I'm completely.
When we say we turn in early on the weekend, we turn in pretty early on the weekend.
Yeah, this completely screws up my sleep completely.
Yeah.
And as I told you about, because I go to sleep real early on Saturday because I normally get up at 3 or 4.
Right.
So 6 or 7, I just happen to wake up. And
saw my text.
I forgot who I don't even know who I saw first because an hour before that I took a melatonin.
Oh man.
And so I'm a zombie right now. We'll get through the show, but I'm a complete zombie. I may not sound like a zombie.
We're leaning on each other and caffeine this morning.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get a cup of coffee here.
And we do have all the live updates coming in
do.
because we expect a lot. There's a lot to talk about, and we will have the president's audio from his very short speech, and also what we might expect, or not might expect, what we do expect from the defense secretary. In just a matter of hours, he's actually going to be talking to the media.
We'll hear from Netanyahu, too. Mm-hmm. And the latest breaking news from the missiles that have been shot at Israel. 866-98-RED-I.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Every driver knows the cost of replacing tires is a major expense. What if you could save on tire costs without sacrificing performance or safety? Consider retreads, a sustainable, cost-effective way to rack up your miles. You may already know that retread tires offer a cost savings, but what else do you know about them? You may be surprised to learn that more than 80% of all aircraft tires in the U.S. today are retreads. From fighter jets to school buses, retreads move some of the most important cargo across many industries. They can also help you move your load too.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up here, we'll have the short statement from the president, the short statement from Benjamin Netanyahu, then analysis from a number of ex-military people and military people out there. I guess Hegseth's going to have a press conference at 8 o'clock Eastern.
Yes. And so I think what's interesting is the president really, he wasn't going to take questions, but he didn't offer many details, just kind of here's what we did, here's what we targeted. And tomorrow morning, Secretary Hegseth will have a press conference. And that's going to be very interesting to listen to and gather from, because I tend to believe this is still an ongoing mission. I mean, the president pretty much said as much, but based on Iran's activity in recent hours, this is not over.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. A special live episode of Red Eye Radio tonight covering the situation in Iran. Let's go to a couple of hours ago. This was the president announcing the strikes on the Iranian nuclear facilities.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say, we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
A relatively short statement from this president. I think you were shocked. I was shocked. I was like, oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a lot of details.
By the way, I'm not criticizing.
No. I
that's not
honestly,
a criticism.
I think on a scale, this mission, a mission this scale, it's one of those where you're going to have to hand it over to the Secretary of Defense in the morning and have him answer some questions about whatever logistics he can talk about. But the president laid out basically what had happened. We know why it happened. Wall Street Journal reporting that the U.S. actually has used Arab officials in the region to convey messages to Iran that the time for peace talks is now. which sounds like, because I always read between the lines, you and I have been trained to do this, sounds like if you're not getting the message that you've got to get to the table now, then it's never. And that would be, again, the question. What does Iran do in response? It is being said, it's being reported, that it is not about taking out the supreme leader.
That's also going through the back channels, was reported.
Exactly.
That our goal is not to
take out the supreme leader.
Right. Again, though, we
don't know if it's opposite day.
Would you believe him?
It's all right. Sometime within 2 weeks, and then it's 2 days. But because the idea is, in that case, if it were disinformation, and they were truly, if it's accurate, what the Wall Street Journal is reporting, that they're using Arab leaders in the region to convey the message of peace talks, is that also drawing him out of the supreme leader out of hiding? Is the intent to draw him? Because my question is, all right, you set them back on nukes, right? Because there's two scenarios here, two wide scenarios. Let's look at them both. One is Ayatollah stays, but he's got nothing. By the way, he doesn't have nothing. He's got something, because he still has the proxies. By the way, widespread damage in Israel being reported over the last 20 minutes as they have hit a couple of apartment buildings. Officials there reporting widespread damage. So there is still the ability to reach out to Israel and do damage here. Where would be the level of trust in the Ayatollah? Okay, no nukes. If we know that he doesn't have any ability to get nukes, can terrorists still kill large groups of people without nukes? And the answer is yes.
Well, I mean, that's the great unknown, and part of the great unknown in the United States, because of course I'm sure they're looking for attacks at military installations in the Middle East. I mean, we've got bases in Qatar, Bahrain. We've got Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iraq. I mean, and so we've got a lot of military bases out there, a lot of military targets that you have a number of the surrogates could, that they could attack. But the great unknown is, and this is the blame of the United States and the liberal mindset of open borders, we have no idea who the hell got in our country over the last 4 years.
Well, that's my great concern.
We have no idea who got in the country. Yeah. That's the great unknown. We might come out of it unscathed. We may not come out of it unscathed.
Well, because the great concern since 9/11, especially I think before 9/11, but it's been more of a general conversation with the general public. The great concern would be that any terrorist group, including this would of course include the proxies for Iran, using dirty bombs. And while they may not, have the ability to, in terms of the impact of it, short term, if you're talking about using dirty bombs in major metro areas, with a plan, if you think about the plan that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed had and designed for 9/11, it was for its time rather sophisticated. And they did it. Maybe not sophisticated to the extent that we're used to here in the States in terms of technology, even back in 2001 or the 5 years leading up to 2001. But certainly in coming in, training for what they were going to do, they had all the patience. The point is, we have no idea over the last 4 years who's come across or how many have come across the border. There was a story just on Friday that the FBI is doubling down on their surveillance of these Iranian cells here in the U.S. We do know that there was a plot that came from the Iranians to kill President Trump before he came back into office. We know a number of things. The question is, it's what we don't know. I don't want to get all Donald Rumsfeld on you, but that's a big deal because of how open the borders were. And you're not vetting people. Quite frankly, 9/11 in part to a large extent was an INS problem. And that is absolutely light years away from the massive problem, much more impactful problem that President Biden put into play by opening the borders. That would be my greatest concern. Cells in the United States or anywhere in the Western world that go active as a result of orders from the supreme leader, orders from Hezbollah, orders from Hamas, or they could be members of Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Shiite militia in Iraq. And what about other terrorist groups? Now that you see this, so the question becomes, do we want to get into, because I don't think if the Ayatollah were going to be targeted, I don't believe it would be the U.S. doing it. Although I have to remember you have to keep in mind Soleimani and how he was executed, not in his country. So the question would be, does the U.S. want to get involved in killing, even though it's Iran, the leader of a nation in his own nation? Do we get to that point, or do you let Israel deal with it down the line? Or do you actually believe you can get them to the table now that they don't have nukes, they're crippled to a large extent? But I have to ask the question, if that's the case, then how far do you trust them?
I saw, again, and you don't know what's going to happen in these cases. You just don't know what the response. And so there's a number of contingencies that you make. But for example, Hezbollah, it was like, well, Hezbollah is going to come after now and just massively attack Israel. And they go, but if they did, this gives Israel the opportunity to wipe them out completely.
Well, in fact, the Wall Street Journal had that story, what was it, last week?
Oh, did they?
And about where are those proxies? Why have they been so silent? To a large extent, because many of their top leaders have been killed by Israel.
And they talked about the Houthis too in Yemen. It's they've been quiet to go, but what you got to realize is Iran is secondary to them. That's not they look and they go, okay, is it going to do us any good to, expend effort here, or do we go quiet for a while, then strike later on?
Right.
And so, again, there are so many variables that you can look at in all of this. We'll go through some of the bases that are over there that may be vulnerable in the Middle East. But I look at it and I think lone wolf terrorist over here. I think of sleeper cells over here. And that's just the great unknown because we don't know.
After the age of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, when you think about the fall of Mosul and Iraq and everything else, which they controlled for 3 years. So by the way, I remember you saying it. I remember the weekend we came back and Iraq had control of Mosul again, and you said this was a nothing story over the weekend. It should have been the biggest story in a long time because it was a big deal. But al-Baghdadi put into place that mindset of the lone wolf. That was his that's what he preached. He wanted do any harm you can to the enemy at any turn. That has not gone away, as you point out. That kind of threat is not gone.
It's always been there anyway, though.
I think it has been, but it certainly, today has to be a concern because now they may feel empowered for revenge. And what does that look like?
We'll hear from Benjamin Netanyahu, what he had to say coming up following the top of the hour, and a whole bunch more. 86690 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. I see the Democrats now all jumping aboard, saying that what Trump did is unconstitutional.
Okay.
Nancy Pelosi saying it's not unconstitutional.
Obama did it. Yeah. So let's not.
They're trying to say that only Congress can declare war. That's got nothing to do with what the president did.
Right. Exactly.
That's got nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing to do with it. So. Again, how long they're going to go with this, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the reaction come tomorrow or come later on today.
Yeah, right.
Or should I say Monday? They're not going to work on Sunday, are they?
Well, I don't know.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The United States went after the 3 nuclear sites in Iran yesterday. We just played a repeat of the statement from the president here in the last segment, or 2 segments ago. We'll hear from Benjamin Netanyahu and what he had to say coming up. But breaking news overnight, this just a couple of minutes ago, Israel has launched new airstrikes on western Iran.
Yeah.
The military said the first since a U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. The Israeli Defense Forces, in a statement, said that the Israeli Air Force has begun a series of strikes towards military targets in western Iran. Additionally, this morning, the IAF struck missile launchers ready to launch towards Israeli territory. Soldiers in the Iranian armed forces and swiftly neutralized the launchers that launched missiles towards Israeli territory a short while ago. Meanwhile, the UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, said on Sunday there had been no reported increases in off-site radiation levels at the 3 Iranian nuclear sites targeting U.S. strikes. It marks their first comments since the U.S. attacks. Iran has been increasingly critical of the IAEA since the conflict with Israel erupted, and Iranian officials have accused the agency of being complicit in the U.S. strikes without providing evidence. The IAEA maintains it as a neutral global watchdog.
It's and also issued that report. What was it? Roughly a week ago.
Yep.
That showed that Iran was not in compliance, and this is again they claim to be neutral, but they truly don't favor Israel normally, but did with that report showing the danger that Iran poses and did at the time. And now the question is, what would be next? In the last hour or so, Israel, there have been strikes in Israel, a couple of strikes. In fact, one that was at an apartment complex. It may have been 2 different apartment complexes, but officials are going through that now, saying there is extensive damage there as Iran struck Israel. But as you said, Gary, the Israeli Air Force has struck again there in western Iran. And so the question now is, because I don't think the president left many questions on the table. We are involved. We're involved now. Is this a one-off? You kept hearing that over the last few hours. One-off, one-off, one-off. Well, the president also said, well, we can, in his speech, in his address, and we played it. You know, if they don't play nice, this can happen again very easily.
I think there's a huge question.
Yeah.
What does it mean when the president says Iran needs to make peace?
Right.
What's the definition of Iran making peace?
Yep. When he said full and complete surrender, you know, you were asking the question, what does that mean? Well,
what does that mean? Right.
Because My question would be, while the president has stated a couple of times he doesn't want to take out the supreme leader, does he want him exiled? Does he want him to stand down? I mean, because if you talk about surrender, that would be it, right?
Well,
I mean, you're not surrendering and handing over the power to the Israelis. It doesn't mean that.
Well,
it means
unconditional surrender would mean that.
Yes.
Unconditional surrender would mean you give up the government, and the United States / Israel is now the government of your country.
Well,
and so I knew, by the way, I knew that's not what unconditional surrender meant to Trump.
Yeah,
I know what unconditional surrender means.
If you're going to say that, that's what it looks like.
But him saying that, it's like, okay, define. That was a question we had the other day. Define what that means. And he said again in his speech last night, it's up to them now. And if they're willing to make peace, then everything is fine. I don't know what that means. Now, apparently, after this happened, shooting the missiles at Israel is certainly not making peace.
No, it is not. And here's what one possibility, at least I'll just lay out. Again, the president has talked diplomacy to the extent that Elizabeth Warren actually said in an interview, I don't normally agree with President Trump, but on this, I agree that diplomacy is the best policy. All right. Well, in other words, he had said it so many times. He had extended that so many times. Now we're saying that, he's saying make peace. It's funny because there's a headline at CNN.com. Trump has demanded Iran make peace. What does that mean? I don't know. Eric and Gary have the same question. What does that mean?
Well, no. What is the requirement of Iran now from the president?
Yes, because it is extremely conditional. Yes.
Right. Make peace. So you
what conditions?
And so we know condition one: stop firing the missiles at Israel.
Yes.
Stop with terror. Now that's not going to stop. So, okay, if that doesn't stop, then what's the response of the United States going to be? Now, the one thing that I was thinking, that they've taken out 50% of the ability of Iran to shoot their ballistic missiles. Mm-hmm. They haven't taken out the ballistic missiles. They've taken out the launching systems.
Right.
Well, why not take out 90% or 95%?
Right, yeah.
And I guess the question would be, what are you waiting for?
Yeah. What's keeping you from doing that? Yeah.
And so, but Israel, and I'm sure Israel's doing it right now. I mean, they just said they were taking out, they see where the missiles are launched and boom, they go after those sites. They get those sites. And since they have drones over Iran, since they have the airspace, they own the airspace. It was interesting that somebody brought up that last week that it's in such a quick period of time, Israel and the United States got the
control the airspace
over Iran. Yet Russia doesn't have it over Ukraine yet.
That is a good point.
That was it. There was I mean, it would be interesting to get. That would be interesting to get Jeff Skunk Baxter.
Yeah. Well, and I would ask him another question, because it was also reported that Putin used an Iranian-built drone to attack Ukraine the day after the first attack in Iran by Israel. And so, that clearly is a little bit of trolling by Putin. I have no doubt. But if you're asking,
what I've heard though is the consensus seemed to be over the weekend from the military experts that the Iranian drones are horrible.
Yeah, right.
Now, whether it's
I've heard in general everything they build is not,
whether it's the operator of the drones or whether it's the maintenance of the drone, whatever it is,
right.
But to have air superiority as quickly, complete control of the airspace, and when they've got drones all over Tehran right now. They know what's going on.
Yeah.
They immediately know where the missile site is, where the missile who shot it off. They can blow up that launcher.
Yeah.
And so they're taking out, ballistic missiles are useless unless you've got the launching systems.
Right.
And if you take out the launching systems, you take out the ability to shoot those missiles. So,
well, and so getting back to the president, insisting on talks and peace, make peace. Again, is this leading up to another move on Iran? Does he know? Look, they're going to strike again, and I'm going to keep talking peace, knowing they're going to strike.
Right. No, exactly.
And
giving you justification.
I'm going to have to do what I have to do in building the public support. Forget public support. Building MAGA support, because MAGA is split on this. Let's be very clear. MAGA is split on this whole issue. And if it's not just about the campaign that happened yesterday of taking out these sites, but it's going to go further because we have to deal with Iran because now they're retaliating. Now we're at war. I mean, we're at war anyway, but now we're fully involved. While there may not be boots on the ground, it still may be, cruise missiles and, I don't know, maybe a couple of other massive bombs. I don't know, but it's more than just the one mission, quite possibly, and that is not going to settle well with a large extent, large group of those who support this president. So in building that entire support, public support, it's important in war in general, you've got to get the public support on this. You do that by repeating the words, we want peace, we want to talk, we want to talk, we want to talk.
No, I think all along, and especially in the first term, we would constantly get on the Trump administration in the first term and say his words are his worst enemy, that they don't communicate effectively. Mm-hmm. I think in this, what I've seen over the last couple of weeks, the way that he has communicated to the point where he was being criticized, for example, talking about the fact that, look, Iran, we can either go after you and we can go after you, or you can have a great country and we can trade with you and
better than ever, and beautiful,
right? And people are saying, well, come on, why is he doing that? We're not going to be trading with Iran. They're not going to be our friend. And it's like, well, obviously, I think I see what he's doing.
He's vetting it. He's vetting the whole thing completely.
Well, what he's doing is he's setting it up for the entire world. I want peace. I want peace. They don't. I want peace. I want peace. I want peace.
He got Elizabeth Warren to agree with him.
Exactly. I mean, the negotiations. They won't do it. The whole point was to send the message: we're trying to get peace with them, and we want them. And by the way, everybody wants their nuclear weapons.
Right. Yes.
Even as it's been pointed out, they said, you notice that the response has been, pretty well muted across the political spectrum. I did see CNN or somebody, it was one of the liberal media, say, look at this. South American countries like Venezuela and Colombia are against what we did. It's like, yawn.
Yeah, exactly.
But so getting the approval of the world, and I knew, I think both of us knew, we said, okay, they're going to go in. Once the IAEA said, for the first time in 20 years, they're enriching stuff.
Right.
They could be close to a nuclear weapon. I knew at that point the United States was going to take advantage of that.
Right.
I knew I think we all knew they were.
Yep.
They were going to do something. They just, Trump was just not going to let this sit. As to the, I don't know, I don't know what the term is. I am just, for the lack of
disinformation campaign.
No. I was talking about I wanted to talk about the isolationist MAGA people.
The rift.
The MAGA warmongers versus MAGA isolationists.
Yeah.
I don't think either is precisely true, to throw that umbrella across, but for the isolationists, Trump's not MAGA anymore. We're MAGA because he said no more wars. He has always said, I mean, this is 10 years ago. Ready for this? Can I play this quick audio from 10 years ago? Here we go.
I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons.
That's 10 years ago, 2015. You and I have always been confused, and we've said, for a lack of a better phrase, the MAGA isolationists, where the hell have you been? Have you not been paying attention? When he took out, you and I said it, when he took out Soleimani, any pretense that he was an isolationist was blown out the window.
Yeah.
Because that's what it said. Remember, the reports were, all right, they've attacked our ships, Iran, and now the attack's going to begin to hit their infrastructure, and then Trump pulled back.
Yeah, right.
And it was like, oh, see, he's an isolationist. He doesn't have what it takes to, and then he went after and killed Soleimani, targeted Soleimani, and you and I looked at each other, we went, ooh, the chessboard's just been changed.
Right.
And it was, why should we knock out, and you see it right now, why should we knock out the electricity, to the citizens? Let's knock it out for the nuclear plants. Why would we go after the grid? Let's get the citizens, and the CIA knows, our intelligence agency knows, they can look at it and go, well, the people really don't agree. They understand. I talk about the Iranian people that I know. Mm-hmm. They know they hate their government. Mm-hmm. They hate it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, keep throwing it out. Keep throwing it out.
Right.
Let them know. Let them know. Let them know.
Right.
We have the ability to do serious harm to Iran from the air without the loss of American life.
Right.
Let's do that. And at the same time, you talk peace, 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 peace. That's what I want.
Right.
I want peace. I want peace.
By the way, I
peace.
think he does want peace.
Oh, so do I.
But the question, but I think he also realizes, first of all, he's not an isolationist, but I think he realizes, look, they're going to do what they're going to do. I'm going to keep talking peace, and I'm going to do what I have to do to protect American interests, period,
right.
and American lives in that region, period.
Yeah.
And that's what you want as a president. I mean, compare him to Biden on Iran. My gosh.
Yeah. Yep.
Two different planets.
Yeah. He has very well communicated, by the way, no leaks.
None.
Jennifer Griffin said she's never seen a lockdown
she was
this
going
great.
on about how silent everybody was. La-ti-da. There was a video of the president just about an hour before it broke, walking across the lawn from Marine One, just as calm and cool, collected, and nothing was leaking.
Best thing.
And then boom.
Not telling the Democrats.
Yep.
You heard that, right?
Yep.
We weren't told. We can't trust you.
Exactly. You're going to, we know what you'll do with it.
You'll leak it. 866-98 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Independents with carrier authority should be mindful that negotiation strength varies as the week progresses. Typically, the highest rates across major segments are paid for loads negotiated on Sundays, and the highest volume of loads for all segments is seen on Mondays. Also, the weekday that tends to be the best for flatbed negotiations, yielding the best rates. Owner-operators tend to have less negotiation strength on Tuesday, which shows the lowest weekday spread between brokers' offered rates and actual paid rates. Broker offers tend to rise by Wednesday as the end of the week is in sight. This day also seems optimal for the 3 o'clock hustle, so-called for its reliance on that afternoon time of day, when brokers are getting nervous, to improve negotiation strength. Stay mindful of this system to maximize your revenue. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, Iran shooting missiles at Israel, and Israel attacking positions, rocket launchers and things in western Iran. We'll have the latest on that coming up. Plus, we never got to play the statement from Benjamin Netanyahu. We will do that coming up following the bottom of the hour. So much news here, so much breaking news and everything else. We'll get it all covered for you.
A special live show this morning on this Sunday on Red Eye Radio.
From the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. A special live Saturday night, Sunday morning show covering the situation in Iran right now. We never got a chance to play Benjamin Netanyahu after the American attack on the 3 nuclear sites yesterday. Here it is.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
All right. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel yesterday. You know, the more that I think, because you and I were talking about the president last night again, saying, will they make peace? Will they make peace? We want peace. We want peace. And I think you made a great point. Said, look, they're going to keep throwing the attacks out, and when they do things like, as we know, shooting the missiles, and we've seen the missile that was shot at the apartment building. That all you do is make the response from the United States or Israel, you make it more justifiable. After everybody knows you're just targeting places where you believe people are. Now, the thing is, even in these apartment buildings, most of the people already, the sirens have gone off. They're down in the shelters.
Right.
So even last week, I remember they said 60 injured. I don't know, was anybody actually hurt or killed in that one? In the one, I don't know if anybody was directly in the building or whether it was people that were near the building, maybe outside, that were actually injured in that last one.
Right. I've only seen the report on the injured. I have not seen any report saying fatalities.
And so when you look at it, it may be as simple as going, look, we just keep saying peace. It's going to, they're going to retaliate.
Yeah.
And then we can retaliate back from the air, and we can take out completely their ability to launch any ballistic missiles. They give us justification to keep it going on, or for Israel to keep it going on.
Yeah.
But the one good thing is, with the number of, military weapons that Israel is using, we might be able to level the trade imbalance.
Well,
from just selling the military missiles.
It's going to get it quite possibly. We made that point, in fact, when we were going through the tariff things, and it was about the time that Benjamin Netanyahu actually he was actually visiting the White House at that time. Iran's foreign ministry, by the way, in the last few minutes has issued a statement trying to see, this is over the last half hour on their X page. But they've issued a statement, and in part, they say that the U.S. has begun a dangerous war against Iran. Part of what caught my eye in the statement, reading the full statement, and I won't read the full statement here, but there's a lot of propaganda in it. But in the heart of it, right about in the middle of it, from again the Foreign Ministry of Iran, as a founding member of the United Nations, the Islamic Republic of Iran expects the organization, the UN, and each of its responsible members to fulfill their duties and obligations at this critical moment when the world is confronting a clear act of lawlessness by the United States, and it goes on and on and on. They're basically telling the UN, you're favoring the United States, and you shouldn't be. You should be protecting us, and blah 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 blah. Again, it gets back to I just found it interesting. When they state that we're a founding member of the United Nations. Well, given the history of the United Nations, the question would be ultimately, where is Iranian leadership? Where's the supreme leader? What does the president want of the supreme leader? Is he asking for him to step down? Is that the surrender, complete surrender, unconditional surrender? He surrenders power?
No, what I was reading last night is the back channel communication through other Arab nations is no, we're not demanding that you resign.
Well, I saw that he definitely didn't want to take him out, right? He's not looking, they're not looking to remove him. And I guess, again, could this be we say disinformation campaign, not the way that liberals say it, by the way. In war, you want a disinformation campaign because you don't want the enemy to know you're coming. You don't want the enemy to get a heads up on what your tactics are going to be. But this is, again, going to be interesting as we watch. What are we looking at here? It's going to be a matter of hours now. The Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, is going to be talking to the media. He's going to be answering questions. So that will be about logistics, right? The B-2.
That's what they do, yeah.
Yeah. What was delivered? The question would be, all right, if you have a question in that room, if I had a question in that room, it would be, okay, what about the presence? We know that the naval presence in that region is its greatest since 2003. So what can you tell us about any other presence in that region that we don't already know that Iran should consider? Now, he may not go down that road. That really is the job of the commander-in-chief when you're issuing, warnings or statements like that. But I really do wonder about the details of this mission and how this whole thing was pulled off. We're not going to learn everything. In fact, I think we won't learn most things.
Well, let's hear a little bit of Jennifer Griffin. Yesterday
this is very interesting.
About some of the things that happened. Here we go.
So my phone has been literally ringing off the hook. But what I would say is that it's notable how much deception was involved in this operation. All eyes were looking west towards Guam and the B-2s that took off late last night towards Guam. It's possible that, but if the distance there would suggest that the B-2s may have also flown east from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Remember, the air refuelers, many of them were placed in Europe and across the Middle East, and that is what is known as an air refueling bridge. And all of those B-2s would require much air refueling in order to make it they usually fly round trip from Whiteman. And so what we can say, and the president said this in his Truth Social post, is that a full payload of bombs, those massive ordnance penetrators, the 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs, were dropped at Fordo. And as we have reported, there are 2 entrances to Fordo. So at least 2 bombs at each 2 entrances, which suggests at least 2 B-2s were involved over Fordo. My suspicion is that there were more. And then you have the 2 other sites, Natanz, which is also has an underground enrichment facility. The Israelis had not been able to reach or take out that facility despite the last 10 days of bombing. And so now U.S. warplanes, likely another B-2 bomber, had dropped that bomb.
Okay, that was pretty early on, but she talked about the deception because CNN reporting that 12 were dropped on the Fordo site.
Right.
And 2 at the Natanz site. You had 30 cruise missiles also, but the bunker busters were dropped at those 2 sites. And it wasn't 2 or 4 or 6, it was 12.
Yeah, because Sean Hannity had reported that he talked to the president. Again, it was fairly early on, and the president told him 5 or 6, and now it's being reported 12.
Yeah, CNN reported that it was 12. Again, who knows what it is? I mean, we'll find out eventually. We'll probably find out during the Hegseth press conference.
Yeah, probably. Yep, right. It will be interesting, again, to see where this plays out. Internationally, you're really not hearing a lot tonight. And I was waiting for a lot of this international reaction. Now, when Israel first struck Iran, you heard both from the Middle East, other leaders in that region saying, no, we want a de-escalation. And then I think Macron chimed in, too, from France. We want this, the de-escalation, basically the obligatory statement. But you didn't see a lot of it. And what was interesting to me? My wife and I are watching the live coverage on TV while I'm also reading and prepping for the show, knowing we were going to do the live show tonight. David Muir was on there. Now, I was watching it streaming, and I'm assuming I wasn't watching it on TV, but I was watching it on my television. But it was streaming from YouTube, and it was live. It didn't contain the anti-Trump bias you would expect. It was very matter-of-factual. Well, it was very factual, and as they went through, who do you have on? Jonathan Karl was on there, and they were pointing out, yes, during Trump's campaign, he said, I don't want to go to war. I don't want to go to war. I don't want to go to war. But they pointed out, he also said, and has been saying for years, Iran can't have nuclear weapons. And then Jonathan Karl pointed out, this is what has been done. This is what Iran has been doing. He mentioned the proxies, including Hamas. My wife actually looked at me and said, is that the real ABC News? And the point is that the tone tonight in the response to what happened, I think, is a combination of a number of things in the media, but also with global leaders. Partly it's, we actually weren't convinced he was going to do it. And then on the other side, it was, you know what? It felt like, and maybe it's just me, Iran had a chance. They had a chance to not have this happen. He gave them every chance, even on the ABC News live coverage. And I just thought to myself, now I did tune over, I think it was CBS, and one reporter kind of went off on a tangent, and I thought, okay, all right, what you would expect. But overall, the tone, as I was monitoring the media, seemed to be, again, because it's a big deal. Think about this. Gary, you and I, not just in radio, not our whole lives, Iran has been a big deal.
Yeah.
My dad was chief of police on Laughlin Air Force Base in Texas near Del Rio. I was a junior police officer. It was kind of a thing, youngsters, and kind of get them involved in the security police officer kind of thing. And I was standing at the gate, in one of our outings, and I remember busloads. I don't know how many it was. Busloads of Iranian pilots were being sent back to Iran. And, it was the skirmish with Iran over decades. Many of us grew up with this, with Iran being the big evil. And the fact that Donald Trump took out their nukes, if it is the case that they have no nukes now, is a huge deal. And the biggest deal for, I think, a couple of generations when it comes to Iran.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, more analysis on what happened yesterday. What did some ex-generals have to say? And also, I just want to make a comment about the options that the president had. And I'll start out by this saying, the president realized unless he ever attacked, they were never coming to the table.
Yes, I think he knew that.
There were no negotiations really that were going on.
No.
That the president wanted. We all knew that. And so you cannot get them to the table to truly negotiate if you don't. Now, whether they'll come to the table now is still to be seen.
Yeah, right.
But you were never going to get them to the table if you didn't attack. Right. There was no chance.
Exactly.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We are live, a special live Saturday night, Sunday morning version of the show. Edition, not version. Edition of the show.
Yes, same version we always do.
Yeah, it's the same version.
Right.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here because of the United States. We went after the 3 nuclear sites in Iran yesterday. One of the things, and I think it's just so important because it's something that people don't discuss much. It's something that really, I think it was 77, 78 when the War Powers Act passed. Right. And I remember reading, I can't remember who wrote it. And I went, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And it was the whole thing of the War Powers Act, that the president now must abide by what Congress says here. And I remember reading the analysis way back then. No, he doesn't. Congress cannot change the constitutional authority of the president.
Right.
Through a law.
Right.
Only the Constitution can. Now, they can create a law that says if the president doesn't do this, we cut off funding.
Right.
That they can do. Mm-hmm. They can't stop the president here. And I was reading Jonathan Turley, because President Trump just announced that the United States has attacked the nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo. As discussed in today's column, Trump has history on his side in taking this action without congressional approval. Senator Bernie Sanders just declared the attacks to be unconstitutional. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has now joined Representative Sean Casten to calling for impeachment. This is legally an act of war, and Iran has pledged to respond by attacking U.S. targets. Some in Congress, as discussed in today's column, have been demanding consultation and congressional approval. The question is whether an Iranian counterattack will expand the conflict. As we have seen in conflicts from Korea to Vietnam to Afghanistan to Iraq, prolonged wars have been carried out without formal declarations of war. There have only been 11 declarations of war and no such declarations for 80 years since World War II. Let me just see, goes, this is the anniversary of the undeclared military action against Libya, when in 2011, Obama approved a massive military campaign against the country. Democrats in Congress were overwhelmingly silent or supportive of that unilateral action. So, and you can actually make the case that you can make a solid case that Iran was much more of a threat to the United States than Libya was at that point.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's, again, the liberals are going to do what they're going to do. They're going to try and politicize this. And you're going to have, in fact, other members of Congress, some in the GOP, that are also, they're going to say, we don't want this. They're the more isolationists. And the word warmonger has been thrown around. I haven't heard anybody call Trump a warmonger yet from the right. But that's been thrown around. The MAGA thing is split on this issue. Well, I wonder, you and I have talked about the fact that so many kind of projected onto Donald Trump, and we're talking MAGA people, that he was an isolationist, and that's never been the case. Now, you can call him a
Nazi. You seem like you were struggling for words.
I've never heard anybody. Well, I was trying to come up with because precision wartime president. I mean, if you think about what he's done, it hasn't been sending thousands and thousands and thousands of troops into foreign nations. It's been about, start with the spring of 2017 when he came in and he went after ISIS in the eastern part of Afghanistan using the Moab. And by the way, first time we've ever used the MOP in Iran, this massive, the biggest bunker buster.
Right, yep.
Just huge.
Yep.
But he went after ISIS in eastern Afghanistan. We know Soleimani. We've talked about that to no end. And that does, but for some reason, people still, knowing that and knowing the history, I assume they know the history of Donald Trump if they're MAGA as in his first term, and they still call him or believe he's an isolationist, but he's not. And so, when you put all this out, look, the statement that he put out earlier, he put it out on social media. The White House reposted it on X. Any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. Thank you, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. So I believe he wants peace. That's why he keeps talking about peace talks. He's looking at Iran going, I don't think they're going to change. I hope they do. They're not. They're probably not. But anticipating, as many are, some kind of attack on American interests or American bases in that region. And if that's the case, you've had your warning. And with Donald Trump, you don't get another one. And I don't know what that looks like. I'm assuming a lot of cruise missiles. Given the presence right now that we have in that region, the naval presence is as great, or did someone make the case even greater than what we had in 2003? Certainly the largest since 2003.
I don't know how many more cruise missiles you're going to see. I think that what you're going to see is, since the Israelis and the United States have control of the skies, I think you're going to see a lot more Israeli attacks. I don't think I'd be surprised because of the Iranian.
Well,
it's because you can. You give yourself, in essence, plausible deniability by saying, well, this is Israel. Israel's doing the attacking. We may still do it, but Israel's doing it right now because I want peace. I want peace. Now, peace means, as we've talked about before, it's like what does he actually mean when he says peace?
Right.
Well, he'd probably like them to stop. If they stop shooting any of the missiles, I don't know if, for example, if Iran stopped shooting the missiles at Israel and they said we want peace, I don't know what the next step is.
Right. Now, do you mean that you believe Israel will do that even if they're attacking American interests? Because I was focusing on if they hit American bases.
No, if they hit American bases, you have to respond.
Yeah, it's gonna be full on, and I suspect it would be those cruise missiles.
I'm sorry, we were miscommunicating there.
I don't think I made that clear because I do believe the president wants Israel to fight Israel's war. Now, you look at where they are, and there's been this back and forth, again between his supporters. We shouldn't be fighting their war. Well, but here's the thing: on the nuke sites, the president's been saying this for a long, long time. You played the audio cut. Was that 2015? Earlier?
2015, yeah.
2015. So he's been saying this for a long, long time. I will stop them from getting it. And this may be the extent, I don't know, unless they attack American bases in that region. But it's in that regard. Iran having nukes is a threat to the U.S., again, to them, to the Iranians, to Iranian leadership. We are the great Satan, and we know what they have done. They have taken American lives already. Soleimani paid the ultimate price for that, but Iran now is paying the ultimate price as well and cannot have nukes, period.
Well, it doesn't matter whether if they and it's not going to happen now for a while. Doesn't matter whether Iran used a nuclear missile or a dirty bomb against us. If he used it against Israel, we'd all be involved. The whole world would be involved. They use a nuclear weapon at all, Iran.
Sure.
Any of their proxies
when it
use
comes
it.
specifically,
it's all,
yes.
Right. So to say
we're talking just missiles back and forth, that might be different. But if there is if they've risen, if they're to the point of having nuclear weapons, all bets are off.
Yeah, well, I'm saying I don't think they are now, but I mean, hypothetically, if they got it, because I don't believe they had a nuclear weapon yet. They were close to it. They were close to it, and they had, the delivery system and everything else. But if they would have shot even a small nuke somewhere over in the Middle East, all hell breaks loose. We're involved. Well, and that's why, for the isolationists to say, well, shouldn't get involved in it. Well, we are involved in it.
Right. And I saw the point made a little while ago. You and I have been doing nothing, since this broke, but reading, watching, listening to a lot of assessment and the coverage of all of this so we could bring it to our audience. But I don't remember the source. I'll go back and find it. But they were saying essentially that it was believed that in recent days that there was a consensus that Iran would be nuke weapon ready within a matter of days. Well, okay, how many days, right? We asked this question when Israel first struck Iran. As this thing goes on, well, there was one site they believed, Fordo, that had the ability to very quickly put that together and make it happen. So the question would be, all right, how long do you wait? Preemptive, think about this. You and I have talked about this over the years. If George W. Bush is a new president who came into office January of 2001, had in June or July of 2001 done a preemptive strike against al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, the liberals would have gone crazy. The world would have scratched their head. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? But you think of Iran, which again has been this massive monster this huge boiling, getting to a boiling point, going on for decades, a half a century. They've been the big bad in that region, and it's far greater than just one cell in Al-Qaeda, as much damage as Al-Qaeda did on 9/11. If they had gone in on a preemptive strike against Al-Qaeda, it would have been probably the end of the approval for if there was any approval in the first summer for George W. Bush.
And we talk about that because you and I, when after 9/11 and the 9/11 Commission, by that time you and I were working together by 2005, and all you heard in the run-up to that was, we need better intelligence, we need better intelligence, we need better intelligence. 9/11 happened because we didn't have better intelligence, and the whole point was, and the 9/11 Commission pointed this out, the bipartisan 9/11 Commission, doesn't matter whether you, and because you and I were saying this, it doesn't matter whether you have intelligence. If you're not going to act on intelligence, it doesn't matter whether your intelligence is better. You're going to have the best intelligence in the world. Oh, my gosh, they're going to attack us. Well, should we respond? No.
Right.
And so the 9/11 Commission said it. And you and I'll never forget, because the focus of the media was not on that particular part of it, which was really the important part of the 9/11 Commission.
It was the critical part.
It was a critical part because what it said was they were at war with us. We were not at war with them. And they were clear about it. And they said the thing that has to be considered is preemptive strikes. If it doesn't matter, you can have the greatest intelligence in the world. If you don't do a preemptive strike, well, then it doesn't matter. Stop with all the get better intelligence. Doesn't matter if you don't do anything about it. And so you and I always looked at that and said the media seemed to ignore that back then. I forgot when it just came out. I just remember that was the discussion that we were having, at that time. It doesn't matter. You can have all the greatest intel. We need better intelligence. We need better, we miss this, we miss that. And what? What would we have done?
Right.
What would we have done? Would we have done a preemptive strike as a 9/11 Commission said we've got to consider doing that? That's what Trump did.
Yep.
You get to a certain point, nuclear weapon, Iran, sorry, can't have one.
Right.
And this is after we have United States presidents that did everything possible to boost up Iran and ensure that they had the money to get to the point where the next president has to come in and go after their nuclear sites.
Yep.
Why? Well, because Obama and Biden, by cooperating and enabling Iran and making sure they had tons of money, that was going to make it where they wouldn't create a nuclear bomb.
Right.
Idiots.
That debate and argument during those years was insane.
So frustrating. Well, I saw the other day.
The money is fungible.
This was. But this was MAGA people.
Yeah.
All Trump did was delay it 10 years. They're still going to be. Well, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
It's not next week.
Right.
It's 10. And a Democrat president will come in and we'll be right back where we were. Yeah, you're right. But we're not there now.
But it's not there now.
That's the entire point.
Yep.
As we said it, the whole point is to delay it, is to move it back a decade or so.
Right.
Where they have to start from the beginning. You make it so they don't have it now.
Right.
What happens in the future, none of us have control of.
But it isn't going to happen today.
These are MAGA people talking about it. The problem with Trump doing it, I support Trump, and by God, we only pushed it back 10 years.
Right. I'll take that 10 years.
Yeah, I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Right.
But the fact is...
Yeah, I saw somebody say 2 years
that's
earlier, and I think it's longer than 2 years, but...
That's fine. 10 years, 2 years, whatever. It's not
happening now.
No.
Yep.
866-90-RED-I.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I love how all these military experts are trying to figure out what's going to happen next. I'm reading from the former chief of Israeli military intelligence, Amos Yedlin, said it's a huge incentive to end the war and save the regime for Iran. Iran could declare that they're coming to negotiate and ask to end the war, negotiating on the basis of zero uranium enrichment. Also said Iran might leave the United States Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, under which it is pledged not to develop a bomb. However, Iran's capabilities to build a bomb do not exist in the coming year or two. Mm-hmm. But would Iran's conservative hardliners tolerate a purely diplomatic response to an attack by U.S. forces on Iranian soil?
Right, yeah. Well, there's
a lot of big ifs.
Yeah, there's the question. So from the Supreme Leader's standpoint, not that he doesn't still want to, the whole death to America thing, but doesn't he also want power? Because there really is, you take that step, I think it's very clear right now. There should be zero questions now. You take that step in harming any American interest at all in retaliation, and it's over for you. Or you get to retain power and you go to peace talks. Now, I don't trust Iran and anything that would happen during peace talks or after peace talks. I'm just saying from their perspective, what would they want greater? Because he would have to be in hiding the rest of his life. And we don't know how long that would be.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. By the way, this is a live Saturday night, Sunday morning show here.
And thank you for being here.
Yes.
I did put it on my X page that we were going to be live tonight to let everybody know. We often get, in fact, from our audience over the weekend, or if we're on vacation, wish you guys were here tonight to talk about this. And when it hit, you and I were both, like, oh man, we've got to go in because there's so much to cover here. This is such a big deal. We also want to thank our technical crew and our producer Alan, who is here, and our technical crew in Denver, and all those who are definitely troopers for being here and making this happen. So thank you for that.
And for us not getting sleep because this totally threw off our sleep patterns.
Well, when we talked about the president mentioning, he would make his decision within 2 weeks. By the way, you said something on the show when I said, what that means. That night we came in, I said, what that means? We're going to 2 weeks. Well, that means we're going to be on vacation when all this happens, because we do have a vacation coming up at the end of this coming week. We start our vacation for Independence Day week. We'll be out. Dan Mandis, the great Dan Mandis from our affiliate WTN. If you listen to WTN, you know him. And he will be filling in while we're gone, and he will make sure everything is covered. And we'll miss you guys while we're out. But we definitely wanted to be here for something like this and do a live show to make sure that because everything is so fluid in this situation, and it is so unprecedented. Again, if you're our age or older, you know what a threat Iran has been. But also, to bring it up to the modern discussion of everything going on, again, within the MAGA community, it's split. You know, you have, I don't know what you would call them, libertarians maybe, non-war, isolationists, whatever you want to call them. And
non-neocons.
Right. Non-neocons. And then on the other side, warmongers. Right. I mean, I that's what they're being called. I don't know what to call me, but I recognize the threat that is and has been for a long time Iran. Do I have every piece of intel on Iran? No, I don't. But do I have confidence and faith that Iran would attack Americans and kill? By the way, they already have. That's why Soleimani paid the ultimate price, thanks to Donald J. Trump. But this is not about intervening in Israel's war. This is about stopping Iran from getting nukes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I frankly, I don't understand, if you want to call it the Bannon wing, the Tucker Carlson, wing. I don't, again, Tucker lost credibility with me years ago for a number of things.
Yeah.
The last one was that the UFOs, he believes, are malevolent spirits.
Right.
At that point, I went, stop being a nut job.
Right. Yeah.
And in 2020, he was all over the place with the election. One day it was one thing, and one day he was cursing at the president. The next day, he was just all over. And so I don't know where he has gone. But when you look at that and they've been some of the most supportive people of Trump, the isolationist wing, if you want to call it. And you and I have always stated, we said this is so much like the whole Ron Paul free trade thing. Yeah. It was amazing.
It was really weird.
You and I never, look, if you want the president, if you want Trump to be an isolationist,
I respect that.
That's one thing.
I respect that. That's fine. I can disagree with you, but I respect it.
Right. But if you say, I wish the president, but they were stating that's who the president was.
With Ron Paul.
Yeah.
We're operating on no sleep. With Ron Paul back in the day, people were calling us going, we love Ron Paul because he's against NAFTA, he's against free trade. No. He wanted unmanaged free trade.
Oh, we got into some knockdown, drag-out fights with this, trying to tell people that, no, you guys have said you don't like some of the things Ron Paul stands for, and so I'm right and you're wrong. Like, go check his website. See where he stands. He doesn't want any trade agreements. He wants, I'll never forget, he actually said one time, if a country's in Iowa, I want a small business, they should be able to trade with Egypt tomorrow. No barriers, nothing. He just used Egypt as an example, I believe it was, at that particular point. And it was the fact that people just paid attention to the surface level of, again, this is where you get into, we used to call it bumper sticker slogans. Now it's meme slogans. No, I heard him. He's against free trade because he hates NAFTA. No, NAFTA's managed trade. He doesn't want anything written.
He wants unmanaged free trade. He didn't believe that governments should. Doesn't believe governments should be controlling that. That if you make widgets in Iowa, you should be able to sell them to anybody in China, and the government shouldn't have any say-so in it.
And so the same thing here with the amazement over the last couple of, we can't believe Trump's doing it. It's like, have you paid attention to who he is? I have found it shocking because I don't know where their projection came from.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know where that came from either.
I'm sorry, but it sort of reminds me of the left going, well, you know something? I disagree that able-bodied men should be getting public assistance. You're a racist.
Yeah.
You know, you're projecting on me because you're a racist because you are the one that promotes identity politics. But, I mean, it was almost that kind of weird to me because it was obvious that Trump.
How do you get from A to B? Yeah.
Trump has never been an isolationist. He did things differently than Soleimani, but to do what he did against Soleimani was unbelievable. I think there would have been less flack if Trump had just attacked. Remember, they're going to attack the infrastructure and oil tankers and things like that over in Iran, and he backed off, and they said, oh, look, he's a coward. Then he took out Soleimani. And remember the outcry from Democrats. It was unbelievable.
Right, yeah.
They went crazy.
Yeah.
So actually, he created much more publicity and much more anger from the left here in the United States by taking out Soleimani, and he did it. That's not an isolationist.
Right. No.
That's simply a different way of fighting a war. He said, well, no, I don't want to. Why should I use military assets that could be shot down?
He has a more targeted approach.
Right. Why should I go after the infrastructure of the country? Let's see if we target the people that are responsible and we target individuals and we don't destroy their society. We don't destroy the civilian infrastructure. Let's see if, it's more amenable and a better way to do it. And he's still doing it right now. And we'll see. But you cannot say he's an isolationist.
No.
You could never say that about Trump.
No.
We never saw that. We've been following him for 40 years. So we were surprised as hell, all of this blowback from the populist, isolationist, non-warmonger, non-neocon side of the Republican Party. Because we just don't know. If they want to hold that opinion, that's fine. Hold the opinion. But you were demanding and telling us that was Trump's philosophy all along, and we never saw that.
No.
We never saw that.
Well,
He didn't. We heard forever wars.
Well,
we don't want to be in forever wars.
Sure. Well, but look, I think Trump wants the same thing. I don't think he wants a forever war.
Well, that's what I mean. You heard from Trump saying, these forever wars and people that support him. Well, that's that's forever war. Right, exactly.
Right, yeah. I mean,
because we United States troops getting bogged down and, infantry in there. And we know that's one thing that Trump wanted to avoid. Obviously, they would be correct if they said that. But getting to the point where they're shocked, absolutely shocked and disgusted that he took out the nuclear sites in Iran. I don't understand where they've been or what they've been observing from Trump over all these years.
Right.
I just don't.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like, well, he's betrayed us. No, he didn't.
Well, no. I mean, again, I have to wonder how much they did pay attention in the first term. It was the first few months that he dropped the Moab in eastern Afghanistan on ISIS. That was the first few months. It was spring of 2017. That's how it started. I don't know where you get isolationist from that.
Neither do I.
Soleimani. Yeah. I mean, I know we keep bringing it up. You've got to think about how huge of a deal that is. I mean, I think everybody in the world was stunned.
Well, yeah,
when that happened.
But you're sending a message that could make leadership of a country react much more intensely against you.
Right.
If you're simply going after the civilian infrastructure and killing their civilians, well, we'd rather you do that because we can make public relations out of it. And I can respond, justifiably. You're going to attack me? You're going to kill me? You see it going right now. I mean, what happened in the way and by the way, they continued that.
Yeah.
Israel is not going after the civilian infrastructure.
Right.
They're killing. And I wonder what the talks were on Trump on that. I wonder if Trump was a part of those talks saying, get rid of the military leaders, get rid of the scientists, get rid of anybody.
Right.
Not that they haven't done it already,
Right.
But to do it at the way they did it over the last couple of weeks,
Right.
and the amount of upper leadership they took out of the Iranian military, how they assassinated them, how they used disinformation, how they might have even used AI for COVID operations to make phone calls, to make these people all go and meet in one place.
Yeah.
I mean, this was, if you're going to fight a war, an attempt to get the civilian population after the war to be more behind you. I'm not saying it's going to happen in this case, but if that's your goal, not to kill civilians, but to still win a war, it has been quite impressive what they have done to target specific leaders, specific scientists.
Yeah. Right.
And what the big prize is, which is getting rid of the nuclear program.
And how many times have we seen Benjamin Netanyahu say to the people of Iran, our war's not with you?
Over and over again.
We want a peaceful existence here. It's your leadership.
And I just think the communication coming out of the White House over the last couple of weeks on this, and believe me, you've been critical of the Trump administration from the first term, especially saying, for God's sakes, learn how to communicate.
Right, it was back and forth on a number of things.
It's been incredible. And even up to yesterday when you and I were both shocked that he just, was it 3-minute speech?
Yeah.
3-minute speech.
Right.
He's done. He's gone. No questions. Turn around. I'm like.
I halfway expected a mic drop.
Did you say the same thing afterwards? I said, he understands what a wartime president is now.
Well, that's exactly what I thought. I thought, this isn't over. In other words, he's positioning himself, waiting to see if Iran is going to attack American bases in that region, and he's going to do what he as a president has to do. But you're right. That's exactly what I got. And it'll be what here in a matter of hours. Hegseth will talk to the media, and we'll learn more.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We are live here on this Saturday night, Sunday morning, because of the attack on Iran's nuclear sites by the United States.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we'll get into more of the specifics of it, see if there's more information that has come out as to. I've seen 6 and I've seen 12. CNN's the only one that I saw reporting 12 bunker busters were dropped on the one in Fordo.
Okay.
They actually said two of them were dumped on the Natanz of the bunker busters.
We'll probably learn more with the defense secretary coming up later this morning. International reaction, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying Iran should return to negotiating table after the U.S. strikes. We'll have more of that coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We are live here on this Saturday night, Sunday morning, after the United States attacked 3 nuclear sites in Iran. We'll have, in case you're just waking up right now, we'll have some of the words that the president said on it earlier. Also, some reaction. This is Fox News' Jennifer Griffin. She said the 18 years she's been at the Pentagon, she's never seen such operational security.
More, according to the president. The other thing I can point out, Brett, is that this is an operation in the last 18 years since I've been at the Pentagon. I've never seen such operational security. There was nobody speaking about this, any of the preparations. There was a complete lockdown, almost a blackout of information for the last few days. I'm sitting here in the Pentagon right now. I can tell you the hallways are empty, and all of the information is coming right now out of the White House. That is a significant achievement because there were no leaks about the timing. Now, sometimes I think those who, a lot of the flight trackers, the open source intelligence flight trackers, that flight radar did indicate some of when the B-2s took off from Whiteman. But again, nobody really expected that it would take place this evening. If you looked at the moon schedule, you might have had a clue because it was a waning crescent and almost a new moon on the 25th. So it would have been very, very dark over Iran tonight, and you need that in order to bomb. That's the ideal condition for something like a B-2 that is, yes, it's stealth, but it still has to be escorted in case any Iran were to put up any planes or there were any opportunities to fire on those B-2s, which are such valuable and very, very special planes. Only the U.S. military has this kind of weaponry and this capability. No other country in the world could have carried off what occurred tonight at those 3 uranium enrichment sites.
You know, one of the things is they brought up, they said, well, this was Top Gun Maverick. Not with the same kind of jets, though.
Yeah, no,
but this is sort of the storyline of Top Gun Maverick.
It's interesting because I kind of joked last week when we were talking, anticipating how this might go down, and then how you plan all this. And I said, well, you're in the Situation Room, and then Tom Cruise comes in, he sits down, he's got all the plans. Of course, he's going to pilot the main jet, but it really did come off as it, and I think that is a credit to our great armed forces and what it takes at that level to pull something like this off. And as she points out, the collective in this case, and keep in mind, leaks happen all the time. But on something like this, I would think there would have to be a clear understanding. Everybody understands how important it is to keep your mouth shut and the doors closed, because you cannot give the enemy any information or any indication that this is about to happen.
You think there'll be any blowback because they forewarned Republicans, but they didn't Democrats on this? Think there'll be any blowback, or do you think Trump will just come out and say, sorry, I can't trust the Democrats. Everything I do, everything that we're attempting to do, they would leak. I'm afraid they would leak what was going on. I don't trust them.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think
we're going to charge him with war crimes, or
Right.
There could have been everything they've thrown at him.
Well, not only that, they leaked that we're attacking.
Oh no, yeah, they would do that. That would be the most critical part. But I mean, that's what I mean. In the leak, they would be up grandstanding. The way that they would leak is saying, "Hey, we can't allow him to do this. He's about to do this, and this is a war crime," and blah 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 blah. By the way, there are already protests that are planned, shocked, for later today. And that's, this is the problem that you have on the left. And the reason why this particular president should never give them a heads up on such an important mission, ever.
What is it? Is it the no Ayatollah protests?
Yeah, exactly. Or the all Ayatollah. It's honestly, I don't know how anyone could make the case that you should make sure you give Jasmine Crockett a call.
Well, let's hear from, this is retired General Mark Kimmett, was on CNN with Anderson Cooper.
Yeah.
And he said, he actually started out saying, well, I'm fascinated and candidly, I'm impressed. But here's what he had to say. And he mentioned the whole 2-week thing as we did last week when we went, 2 week.
Yeah.
sending them, deflecting, sending them in a different direction, disinformation.
Right.
Here's what he had to say.
Well, I'm fascinated, and candidly, I'm impressed. I never really could understand what the 2-week pause meant or what it was for. What was left to negotiate? What were we going to expect the Iranians to offer? In many ways, it was much like a Trump deal. I mean, he's trying to make a deal to buy an apartment, but all of a sudden the apartment was destroyed. So where's the negotiation? So I think the use of deception and trickery in this case, first of all, was successful, but second of all, saved the potential loss of American lives.
Let me ask you, just in terms of like bomb damage assessment, how long will that take? I don't know if that's something the U.S. does, if Israel is doing that, or some combination thereof.
Well, you can anticipate that every intelligence gathering asset that the United States has, from satellite to communications intelligence to human intelligence, is now focused at least on Fordow to make sure that they have an accurate reading of what damage has been done to that site, and if there's going to be a need for attack or reattack.
You know, that wasn't talked about. I just wanted to pause for a second. That wasn't talked about much. If you don't get it, you go back in. And the answer is you have to.
You have to. This job has to be finished.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't matter. The reaction is going to be the same either way.
Right.
You've already, however they're going to respond because of the first attack.
Exactly.
Here's more. Okay. Let's keep more.
When you have a site like that, which is so deep underground and in the side of this mountain, how hard is it to get accurate bomb damage assessment if you don't have, from satellite imagery, if you do not have special forces on the ground actually inside a facility?
Well, hopefully you're hearing and intercepting their communications, whether it's digital or whether it's voice, to get some sense of what happened down there. But you're absolutely right. You probably will only get a 10% answer to that question. I would not want to be the targeteers in the bomb damage assessment teams that now have to turn to the president and say, we got it, we didn't get it, or we didn't get it enough. Likely there will be a need for a reattack. It certainly could have damaged, but probably did not destroy the facility. So we'll just have to wait and see when that information comes into the president, what his next action is going to be.
One thing I thought, all right, so you shoot a bunch of bunker buster missiles, anywhere between 6 and 12 is the number that I've heard.
Right.
And if the damage assessment comes back and go, we're not sure, do you shoot the next bunker buster right into the hole that the first bunker buster has opened up for you? In order to get 200 feet down even further.
No, that's in part why, in my tiny mind, non-military mind, non-engineering mind, why I thought you would need multiple bunker busters anyway. Because if we're talking, whatever it is, 300 feet deep, and they were unsure whether this would go that far, my thought was, okay, well, the question was, are they going to send in one after the other because you're basically clearing the way for the second one with the first one? I don't know.
No, that's a great point. I wasn't thinking that you send one bunker buster missile in, and then you attack that exact same location with the second one.
Right.
30 seconds later.
Yeah. I'm guessing, yeah.
I was reading some of the stuff on the bunker buster missile. It knows the different layers that it's going through.
It counts the layers. It counts, they say floors. It counts the number of floors. It's crazy.
Floors, ground layers.
It's layers in the ground. Because we're talking about tunnels and, inside these mountains, these bunkers that they're busting. And so it will go through those layers of cement. They call them, they refer to them as floors, but it will count them. And I guess if they have intel that it's so many, then the detonation happens at a certain point. I did see one expert that said, and again, I have no clue. Well, we might learn more with Hegseth this morning or later on in this process. But Pete Hegseth is supposed to have a press conference here in about 3 hours and 45 minutes, 8 a.m. Eastern, I think. And so my question would be, can it keep going? I mean, what really is the depth potential for them, or do you use multiple in order to achieve?
Yeah, they say 200 feet. But again, is that for public consumption?
Exactly.
Because I wouldn't.
And they've never used these. This is the first time we've ever used the bomb.
Or that's a great point. Or is that just an analysis from people, from people outside in the private sector observing what it does? I mean, do we know that it just goes 200 feet? And why would you give that information out? I would think anything about a bunker buster missile would be some of the biggest top secrets you would keep as a country, especially when it only has one use. And the one use is one major use, which is to take out nuclear bunkers.
Right. I have a nephew in military intelligence, and he does not talk to me, which has nothing to do with about saving secrets or anything. He just doesn't like me. No, he's one of these guys that doesn't really talk to people at all. His wife tells me all the time, he doesn't carry on. Now, obviously, he can't about his work, but he's not the jibber jabber. He doesn't, want to brag about anything. He just does his work. And I'm not going to be able to pick his brain. I wouldn't want him to tell me. He can't tell me. It would get him in trouble. But I'd certainly love to know the full capability. And maybe down the road we might learn that. Quite often is the case after missions, massive missions like this, when the dust settles or this is in our rear view for a bit, I don't know, History Channel or somebody, a documentary, does, okay, after its first use in the field in war, it was learned that these are actually the capabilities. I don't know. We'll see. Lots of international reaction. Britain's Prime Minister saying, Iran should get to the table.
Yeah, I have it right here. He says Iran can never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and the U.S. has taken action to alleviate that threat. Prime Minister Karmer said in a post on X, calling Iran's nuclear program a grave threat to international security. We call on Iran to return to the negotiating table and reach a diplomatic solution to end this crisis.
No wagging a finger at Donald Trump on that.
Iran's foreign ministry earlier said the U.S. has begun a dangerous war against Iran by striking its nuclear sites, an attack it said was a violation of international law. This was just from 38 minutes ago, smoke still rising from Iran's Fordo nuclear facility after U.S. strikes. Video broadcast by Iranian state media and geolocated by CNN shows smoke rising from the direction of the Fordo nuclear facility after the U.S. Struck 3 nuclear sites on Sunday, including Fordo. Now, this is definitely a picture taken in the daylight. So
and it's a car traveling down a highway, and you can see in the distance the smoke coming from that site.
It sort of still has the mushroom form to it, doesn't it?
It does. My question would be, too, because they say there's no radiation detected from these sites at this point, based on how the big bomb works at the Fordo site, then would it be buried?
Iran claimed they moved it out.
That there was nothing there to begin with.
Right. They claim they moved that all nuclear material was moved out of it. So, but you make a case. I mean, that's the concept of underground testing.
Right. Yeah.
Everything collapses upon itself.
Right. Right.
And keeps it from
exactly.
Now, you might not want to drink the groundwater around that area for a while.
I'm guessing no. Yeah. And there's always that risk that, that would happen. We'll find out in coming days if that changes radiation levels in these zones. But as of right now, a number of sources saying none detected at this moment.
866-98-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. When driving, you need to manage the space around your vehicle so that there's enough space to allow you to adjust when traffic conditions change. The space ahead of your vehicle is the most important and one of the easiest to monitor and adjust as needed. One rule of thumb is to allow at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. At greater speeds, add an additional second. It's impossible to keep other drivers from tailgating you, but there are some things you can do to make it safer, such as increasing your following distance, avoiding quick lane changes, and slowing down. There are also several things you should do to ensure that there is plenty of space between the side of your vehicle and other vehicles. Don't hug the center line, avoid hugging the right side of the road, and avoid traveling alongside other vehicles in strong winds, especially crosswinds. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We're here live tonight, by the way, just so everybody knows. And you're like, wait a minute, live for what? Live after the attack on the Iranian nuclear facilities. Has did the president go to sleep?
You know what? I'm not sure he slept since G7. I did notice, and my wife made the comment when we were watching his speech live. He addressed the nation last night, and she said he looks tired. I said, well, he has reason to be tired, but I thought to myself, he probably hasn't slept much since. Now, here's a guy who gets in his full 8 minutes of sleep a night. I've heard for the longest time he sleeps 3.5 to 4 hours a night. I'm pretty close to that. For me, for years, it's been about 4.5, 5 hours. Here lately, a little bit longer. But the president, you can bet. I wondered that, too, because he was flanked by his vice president, J.D. Vance, when he was talking, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth.
Who didn't know where to stand.
Who apparently wasn't told where his mark was.
Yep.
So I was looking at all four of them thinking, those guys are going to drink a little bit of coffee. J.D. Vance drinks Diet Mountain Dew, which just by coincidence I drink as well.
No true social post in a while.
In a while, right.
A few hours.
Hopefully he's getting some much needed rest.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here on this Sunday morning, a special live edition here of Red Eye Radio to cover the attack on the 3 nuclear sites from the U.S. against Iran late yesterday. Well, I guess it would be early evening yesterday, our time.
Yes, it was overnight there in Iran. Right. It was early evening here in the U.S. And
Iranian airstrikes hurt dozens in Israel. I just saw that headline there. We'll get to more of that coming up.
Yeah.
I wanted to play this, though, because this was actually interesting. This came Friday night. on CNN. I don't want to forget to play this because it was Van Jones, and to hear Van Jones on this on Israel, on Iran, number one, and the danger that they pose. I thought this was fascinating because when you think about it, again, nobody watches CNN, so I mean, and I'm not. That's not a shot at CNN. It's just nobody really watches CNN, and so people may not remember who Van Jones was. He was an aide to President Obama, and he was viewed as the biggest socialist in his administration. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
He's a socialist. He's a communist. This guy is as far left as you can possibly imagine. So when he's on with Scott Jennings occasionally, it's interesting to see when he agrees with Scott Jennings. Yeah. But here was what he had to say on Friday night.
He's buying himself some time and some room. I was also in the Holy Land very recently. I think progressives underestimate how dangerous Iran is. Iran is not a normal country. Normal countries don't blind women because they showed some hair. They don't empower little gangs and proxies to surround a country and fire rockets and rape people. So Iran, the two things are clear. The what, they cannot have a bomb, and the why, because they say death to America, death to Israel, and death to all the Jews. One of those should offend you if you're progressives. At least one should offend you. And so the question, though, is the who and the how. Is Israel going to take out this nuclear capacity by dropping people there who blow it up? Or is America going to take it out by dropping a bomb that blows it up?
But we know we know what happened there. Yeah. I'm sorry. I started laughing. Look, this is all serious topics, but he said at least one out of the three has to be offensive to you. Well, they're all offensive.
They're all offensive.
It's like one out of the three.
At least one.
Well, one was, and the other two, no problem at all.
You have a minimum, just at least one. What?
Because
all of them.
The choices were death to America, death to Israel, death to all Jews.
Right.
I mean, it's like
at least
one out of the three has to be.
Well, which one would that be, Mr. Jones?
Oh my gosh!
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That really kind of took me. Like, what? What? At least one of them. How about all of them? Should greatly offend you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that made me laugh.
Yeah.
All right, what I want to get to here. Yeah, a few of the bases, because there are things that we're talking about. First off, about what the response might be. We saw some of the response last night. You had missiles that were shot at Israel. One hit an apartment building. Many people are injured because of it. We have no reports of deaths yet there, but we saw the apartment building that was hit, and that was pretty well damaged.
Yeah,
if people were in there, people died.
Right. Yeah.
And then there seemed to be like a house or a townhouse, a couple of townhouses near it that seemed to be completely and totally, destroyed too. So that's one of the reactions. I don't know how the president, when he gets up this morning, how he's going to view that, because he said, hey, make peace or we come at you even harder than we have before.
Right.
Well, they certainly didn't make peace. Now, is he going to allow the Israelis to take care of that, and he's just going to pay attention to whether they attack our assets? For example, we have a base in the biggest base in the Middle East, the Al Udeid Air Base, located in Qatar, is the largest military base in the Middle East. Will they hit that? In Bahrain, the U.S. Navy Fifth Fleet, the headquarters, right there. The Al-Assad Air Base, a U.S. air base in Iraq that Iran has targeted in 2020 after the killing of Soleimani. The installation houses thousands of American troops and is the site of the largest U.S. deployment in Iraq. The Hahar Air Base, a base in Iraq, has been on the receiving end of Iranian proxy group drone attacks. The Al-Tanf Garrison, a U.S. military base in southern Syria, near the borders of Iraq and Jordan, an Iranian-backed militia attack on the Tower 22 outpost just 12 miles south of El Tanf killed 3 U.S. service members in January of 2024. The Ali al-Salam Air Base, an air base in Kuwait, and about 20 miles from the Iraqi border that houses members of the Air Force's 386th Air Wing, and the Al Dhafra Air Base located in the United Arab Emirates. The installation is home to the Air Force's 380th Air Wing, which operates F-22 Raptor fighter jets and several kinds of surveillance planes and drones. Plus, what they're worried about is the Iranians may try to close the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
And if they do that, that could really, really affect oil getting out from that region.
In fact, about 20% of the world oil supplies move through Hormuz. And if they choke that off, then that would be a massive impact. Massive impact. So I guess that's pretty much what the administration or Intel is trying to find out, what their reaction is going to be long term. In Israel, from the Jerusalem Post, this came out earlier. The IDF says it's unlikely Iran can fire 100 missiles at once anymore. Home front restrictions might relax at some point. The statement was made after the U.S. bombed Iran's most important remaining nuclear facility at Fordo, and the Islamic Republic's best shot retaliation late Sunday morning. Again, that was from the IDF. Nothing has changed on those restrictions there in Israel. As you were mentioning, I think we mentioned it, as those missiles hit that apartment complex. There are dozens reported injured. When looking at the pictures, I mean, it's just utter devastation. But you were saying the good news is, in situations like this, they do have warning. They have restrictions. They're in bunkers. Many people are in bunkers, and so that limits the number of fatalities and injuries. And hopefully that remains to be the case there in Israel.
New York Post has Iran injured at least 86 Israeli civilians in a furious barrage of missiles launched at Israel following the massive U.S. strike against Iran that obliterated 3 nuclear facilities on Saturday. At least 27 ballistic missiles. That's where you're saying they can't fire, they don't believe, 100 at a time.
Right.
At least 27 ballistic missiles were launched into Israel in 2 waves, striking 10 different locations on Sunday morning. The Times of Israel reported, citing the Israeli Defense Force, as many as 86 Israeli citizens were injured in the bombing wave, including 2 children who were being treated at a medical clinic in Tel Aviv, and a man in his 30s who was moderately wounded from the shrapnel, according to the Times of Israel and Israel's health ministry, which makes you wonder, because when you look at the actual apartment, this thing is completely destroyed. Right. If you were there when the missile was hit, if you were in those rooms, you were dead.
Yeah,
I mean, you were gone.
Yeah,
and so I don't know. We'd asked this the other day when they were talking about 60 people injured. This was Friday night. This was Thursday night, Friday morning when we were in, and you were like, "There's no deaths, really?" Because you could see. You saw where that hit, and that wasn't as bad as this one. The pictures I've seen here, this one looks pretty bad.
Right.
The injured all reported to hospitals. 4 are in critical condition. 2 listed as moderate. 3 under medical evaluation, and the remaining 77 suffered light injuries. So there's where we are right now in the. What was the other one that I wanted to look at here? Let's see. Just looking at here, the headline says that U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities won't lead to another Chernobyl. I'm trying to find out the reason why. Here it is. But the hits on Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo, Iran's most secure nuclear enrichment facility, which was buried 300 feet inside of a mountain, should not spark panic over a possible nuclear fallout. Expert in radiation hazards say there is little risk of widespread contamination, such as what took place at Chernobyl. Chernobyl is considered to be the worst nuclear disaster in world history.
Yeah.
This is not a Chernobyl scenario.
Right.
So in layman's term, this isn't hot nuclear fuel undergoing fission. If it's uranium in various stages of enrichment,
right, and
even a military strike that destroys centrifuges or disperses material is unlikely to produce a large-scale, long-lasting fallout event. Now, the Iranians did say early on all the uranium's been moved from those locations. Who knows whether that's the truth or not?
Right.
The U.S. targeted enrichment facilities, not nuclear reactors, deep within Iran, buffered by mountains in the north and the Caspian Sea in the northeast, so there may be localized contamination, but not a region-wide radiological disaster. There's no fallout threat from this because it's all underneath the ground, said the Atlantic Council's Alex Pitsis. The president just prevented World War III with his divisive action. This is the strength in peace through strength, boldly shown to the world at last. The nature of the material in Iran is a key reason a nuclear fallout type event is unlikely. With uranium, the radiation really doesn't travel very far, said Professor Claire Corkhill, chair of mineralogy and radioactive waste management at the University of Bristol, told the BBC in Great Britain.
Yeah.
Well, I was never going to get a degree in that.
Nope, wasn't going to happen. But we are going to learn some things later this morning, Gary, as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs Chairman, Air Force General Dan Kane, will brief reporters at the Pentagon. That'll happen later this morning, again, 8 a.m. Eastern in the Pentagon press briefing room. They're going to have reporters there, and it will be on camera. So they're warning the media right now. In fact, I think they warned them a couple hours ago. 60 seats, first come, first serve. So only one seat per news organization, the DOT basically was telling the media. As you can imagine, the world media wants to be in that room, and I don't know how long it's scheduled for, but there's got to be tons of questions, a million questions that people have for Secretary Hegseth and General Kane. But that will happen again, 8 a.m. Eastern, coming up here in just about a little over 3 hours.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. If you're just waking up, you might have missed the president's statement last night, and also Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel's statement, as the United States hit 3 nuclear sites in Iran last night. We'll have the latest on the counterattacks by Iran, shooting missiles at Israel and hitting, just from what we know, just that one apartment complex seems to be the only one that they're talking about.
Right.
Initially, it was 10, but from what we know, it's only that site that the one missile hit. So we will have the latest on that for you. And then what happens next?
Yeah.
You know, what happens now when the president says that Iran has to make peace? What are the specifics of that peace? Iran, though, making it clear, though, we're not going to stop enriching uranium. We're not going to cooperate.
Right.
We're going to, you've opened up a Pandora's box. We're going to come get you.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see what happens from the president over the next couple of days, and also Iran.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.